Hi, and welcome to this special podcast made by Uks Research itself. My name is Usman, and today we're going to talk about the story of Uks, which is an advocacy and rights based group with a strong focus on the women in media relationship. Starting off in 1997, it has since transformed into an organization constantly raising awareness and working towards fair and sensitive representation of women in the media industry. To further dive into the story, the experiences, the rainy and the sunny days of Uks, we will be talking to Mr. Tasneem Ahmar, who's the director at Uks Research Center and the executive producer of Uks Radio in Islamabad and Karachi. Mr. Tasneem, it's a pleasure having you here.
Hi, Usman. I'm really delighted to be part of this podcast.
And of course, we are delighted to have you here. Mr. Sneem, diving straight into the questions, what experiences led you to conceive the idea that an organization like UX was required in Pakistan?
The whole idea behind Uks was to be able to get a platform where we could discuss the kind of portrayal women were being shown in and how the media was portraying women, especially in the print media, because that's what was there in 1997. A lot of print media,
Mm-hmm.
one state radio and one state television, which already had their own ethical guidelines. So, what I really wanted was to be able to monitor the media, analyze the content, and then take it to different stakeholders. For example, the editors, the desk people, the civil society people, the readers, everybody, and to get sort of a consensus on their view of how women were being portrayed in our media at that time. So that was the idea behind UX, and that is how we started, and that is how we have still continued. Although we have obviously added on, for example, electronic media has been added on since 2003 after the expansion, and now we have a lot more of TV channels and FM channels to monitor, and then also the recent element of the social media.
Yeah.
So we also like to monitor that on how women are being trolled, or the kind of language that is used, the kind of misogyny that takes place, the kind of toxic masculinity that you see, and all those things. So it is the same concept that we started with, and we have been expanding it. So yeah, that is how we have been doing. That was the whole idea behind UX, to be able to monitor the media and to be able to get an audience who would understand what was wrong, and also the media people to understand that the how they were portraying women, or how they were reporting on women, especially on violence against women or show business, was not the ethical kind of reporting, and that they needed a lot of training, a lot of ethical guidelines to be able to uh, come out with really sensitized, sensitive kind of content. So that is what UX is all about.
Well, certainly. I mean, it's interesting how you've mentioned how everything has changed over the course of time with regards to changing technology or media. Initially, what were your expectations for UX, and how have these objectives evolved over the course of time?
So, as I was saying, the reason about the reason for UX to come into being in Pakistan, and at that time, there were very few organizations. In fact, I don't think there was a single one that was taking up women in the media as its center point, as its main focus. So ours was the first, and is still the first in many ways in Pakistan,
Mm-hmm.
on how we monitor the media and how we then sensitize the media.
Yeah.
And of course, the whole idea was to build kind of an environment where women could be perceived as human beings, not as a commodity. So my expectations were obviously that we will be able to get a sensitized media. We will be able to get proper coverage, a more positive coverage of women in many ways, and also not just positive, a lot of coverage for women. Because if we look at the composition of a newspaper or a TV channel's programs, we'll see that maybe it's women make about 5 to 10% of total news or views and other content, except for advertisements, except for show business where women dominate, obviously for being commodified. So my expectations still are that we should be able to have a sensitized media, but that's not happening. uh, each time we think that we have been able to train the media, we learn through our monitoring and our content analysis that uh, the journey is still on, and the battle and the struggle is still on, because there are a lot of people who don't believe that this is an important issue. So a lot of times when I've been on training on training sessions,
Yeah,
people have already, many times they've asked me that why do you think women and their portrayal is so important, that you have established a whole organization for that, and what do you aim to achieve? And my answer has always been to be able to make this happen, that women are human beings first, and they should be respected for that.
sure.
So my expectation even now is to be able to get that kind of dignity and respect for women, not as their mothers or sisters, which comes like in a frame. Um, and once we put women in that frame of mother, sister, and daughter, that means that anybody who doesn't come into that frame is not uh, really deemed for respect. So, those kind of um, connections, that kind of context is very much needed to understand why women need to be uh, not taken for granted as a commodity or as a sexual object, but they need to be taken as a human being, just like uh, we give men that kind of respect. I mean, that's an inbuilt thing in our mechanism, in our social fabric. So women and other marginalized groups like the transgenders, many other people don't get that kind of respect.
Interestingly, you mentioned how women should be respected for being women instead of being mothers and sisters. You've touched upon the various issues faced by women. What initiatives is Ux currently involved in to address the various gender issues? Of course, most notably being the negative portrayal of women in the media.
Swan, our struggle is still on, as I said, and uh, you know, we still are involved in initiatives, in projects that take up media, that are in fact based upon media monitoring and content analysis. So much so that every one of us, every one of my team members, is always looking at media content very critically. They would send me clips, they would send me excerpts from either print or the electronic media, even social media, that does not do justice to women and how they should be portrayed. And that is what we are working on. I think our greatest achievement, one of the greatest achievement, has been to be able to become part of the Global Media Monitoring Project, which is an initiative of an organization called World Association of Christian Communication. And it's been holding these global media monitoring since 1995, with the first Beijing platform of action. And since then, every 5 years, they would hold this monitoring around the world. And till 2010, Pakistan was not included. And I learned about it, I think, around 2003. And I really wanted to include Pakistan in it, because I think Pakistan has a really vibrant media, with a lot of interesting things, a lot of contradictions within the media about women and how they're portrayed. So what happened was that, I tried to locate the organizers, and I almost sort of stalked them, I would say. And finally, 2009, I got connected with Dr. Sara of WAC, and we spoke about my dream of having Pakistan included in a global media monitoring project. And she agreed, and we met in Cairo for a training session with other participants from around the world. And 2000 onwards, Pakistan has been part of this project. We have done a national and a global report in 2010, then again 2015. This year, 2020, it was supposed to be in April, but obviously it got postponed due to COVID 19, and now I think it's going to be in September. And that is 1 day of media monitoring around the world, about I think 130 plus countries in all continents. So that is a huge project where the entire world looks at that day's media, print, electronic, which is radio and television, and also social media. So that is one big achievement. And then again, Uks became the very first non-government organization to indulge in or get involved in radio productions, and we had a state-of-the-art radio studio in 2003, and for a year we produced a program called Media Vasudha, which was the first ever by a women team. I was the executive director, and I had four young women producers working under me, and we got all kinds of stories from all over Pakistan, field and desk both. More of field because that's where you get the real stories. So, Uks Radio project is also something that I'm very proud of, and even till now, very recently we did four full programs and about 10 public service messages for an organization in Pakistan, and it has already been aired, and it got good reviews as well. So we are focused on a lot of things. Radio productions, digital stories, a lot of media research, a lot of report writing. So that is what we are engaged in, and hopefully we will continue with the same kind of passion that we have for all these years to come. Let's see.
So to sum it up, Ux is involved in various initiatives to bring about a certain level of positive improvement in terms of the media portrayal of women in Pakistan. Ms. Tasneem, let's go to more of an ideological kind of question. What is Ux's stance on feminism?
Well, to talk about feminism in a Pakistani context is quite difficult because it's a very misunderstood concept. People generally think that being a feminist means you are moving away from your, the cultural or social stereotype that you have been brought up in, and that's a general feeling. So what we did, and this actually has started to be debated after the Aurat March. I think since the last 2 years. Before that, it was a subject that was not actually taken up by scholars or even the media or in general public debate. And that is why feminism in Pakistan has never been actually understood in its truest spirit. And obviously, there are very many shades of feminism, and which school of thought would you like to adhere to? So that is all which is there. But simply speaking, I think feminism is to believe that women's rights are human rights. I think that is my basic understanding and explanation of feminism. And very recently, I think it was this early this year, starting from February 12th, which is supposed to be Pakistani Women's National Day, goes back to 1983 when women of civil society, women rights activists, and human rights activists all had gathered together to protest against the black laws being introduced by the then dictator General Ziaul Haq. And that particular day, February 12th, 1983, there was a sort of a procession. Yeah, it was a big procession, in fact. And it was beaten charged by the police. They were tear gassing. A lot of people got injured. And that became sort of a landmark date to be remembered in Pakistan as the beginning of women's movement in Pakistan. That is, celebrated or commemorated every year. So what Ux did was to start social media discourse on what is feminism. So we put up four very basic questions to our to the people that we had selected for answering this, and they belonged to all spheres of life. Actors, writers, uh, activists, media people. So the questions were like the basic ones: what is feminism, and do you think feminism is a Western concept, or how would you define feminism in a Pakistani context, and how would we actually take these ideas, or the very spirit of feminism to younger people, to the youth. So we had interesting debate on that, and every day, like till from February 12th to March 8th, International Women's Day, we ran this campaign, and a lot of men and women. Of course, there were more women, and it's quite difficult to find or locate, sensitized men. So we had quite a few, and I think because it was put up on Twitter and Facebook and our website, so I think a lot of people went through the debate. I mean, I think they also got engaged, and we got good comments on that. So that was one effort of Ux on familiarizing people of Pakistan, especially the younger generation of Pakistan, to the concept of feminism, and also to remove a lot of perceptions or stereotypical notions about feminism. So I think that's what we have done, and I think it has been a great effort, and we plan to continue with that to be able to uh, tell our younger generation what feminism is and what feminism is not. There is a clear divide between the kind of feminism that you would like to adapt to or adopt, because every country has its own culture and tradition and customs and social norms. So living within that, how do you embrace feminism? So there are a lot of ways, and one has to keep on taking these out, like you know giving these kind of awareness to our younger generation, so that the doubts that they have in their minds, or the ignorance that they have around them, uh, can be removed. I mean, that's just a small effort, but I think we will continue to be doing that.
To further delve into feminism and its role in the Pakistani society, you mentioned the Aurat March, which was held on International Women's Day, March the 8th of 2020. It is an annual political demonstration organized in various cities of Pakistan, which most notably, of course, include Islamabad, Karachi, and Lahore. Mr. Sneem, there's always been a considerable amount of backlash to such protests, especially the Aurat March. What were you hoping to achieve through the Aurat March, and why do you think there was such a considerable amount of backlash this year?
I think the whole idea of having the Aurat March, I think it started 3 years. Yeah, this was the third one. The first year, the backlash was very huge, and there were threats. There's still threats to the participants, and most of them, of course, being women, and how they should be treated. There were rape threats, there were death threats, and again, all kinds of filth was, spread all around the march and the participants. The media also was, I think, not very supportive, except for some of the, I would say, English language media, which understood the concept and also the need for it, why women should come out and take up small little things. You know, there were slogans which were taken totally out of context. For example, the slogan "Mera jism meri marzi," which is like "my body, my right,"
Yeah.
and how it was taken out of context to just mean, take it. Of course, it has a sexual side to it, but it also has a right-based side to it, which is like, a woman has a right to produce children if she wants to, and she has a right to not to. And when a woman is, made to produce 10 children without her consent, she wouldn't want to, but she's forced to, and she's not allowed to go against this. Or when a woman wants to not have any more girls, but the family or the husband would want to have a son, a boy, and she would be made to continue to have, six, seven, 8 kids, just in the hope that she may deliver a son to the family. Um, the husband is never even sort of made to go through a medical examination or anything. So, and rape, for that matter, that is the whole negation of your own right on your body. uh, so all these things were taken really out of context, and even simple little things, like you heat your own food or find your own socks. So, in our society, actually, boys are raised as if they don't have any role to play in the household chores, and to expect them to help out, or not even help out, just do their own stuff. Like, for example, make their own bed, or find their own clothes, or even wash their own clothes, for that matter. So these are, heat their own food, I mean, or fetch a glass of water from the kitchen. I mean, these are all the things that either servants are supposed to be doing, or if there are no servants, the women are supposed to be doing. And it's really, it has come to a stage when women don't want to do it anymore. The young girls don't want to do it anymore, because they say that, well, we do our work and boys can do their own work. So it's also a lot to do with how they are raised. There are some families, for example, I can quote my own family, where we were raised as equal. Like, my brother had the equal amount of chores to do as we had, and my father would never ask me to make tea. In fact, he would make breakfast for me when I was be getting ready for work. So that is the kind of difference. I mean, I never knew that there were places where you wouldn't even push back your chair when you got up from a dinner table. But these things happen, and I think there's a limit to everything.
Absolutely.
Um, so, Aurat March was taken totally out of its context, and I think just the sheer will and commitment of young girls and women to continue to have this, despite all kinds of threats, and threats of disruption, threats of physical harm. They have continued with it. I feel that that's a victory, and gradually, I think there will be an environment where people will understand why these marches are very important. They're very crucial for people to understand all the injustices that are there in the society in the name of customs and traditions. So I think Aurat March has been a good beginning, and I think it should continue. So that's what we think, and Uks, of course, has been holding dialogue for change on this very issue. I have been training the media on this issue, and I've actually spoken about it to very conservative media from all over Pakistan, and have tried to explain to them that, why do you have to take everything in a wrong context? So let's see. Hopefully, we will be able to come up with a consensus on why oil of Mars should be there, and there wouldn't be so much of conflict as it is today. So hopefully, in the coming years, we'll see more marches, and with a lot more men participating, and also women, because there have been a lot of women who opposed Bharat March. So we need to continue this kind of debate and discourse the whole year around, not just a week before the march and a week after the march. That does not actually help. So yeah, continuity with the kind of commitment that you have all year round. I think that's what we need to do.
All right, all right. How do you fund your organization, and in what ways are you connected to other international human rights bodies?
Usman, when Uks was founded way back in 1997, it was with zero funding, zero money, and I had sort of rented out the upper portion of the house that we were living in, and the rent was paid by my husband for a year, and uh, I thought that we'll be able to get some funding, but we actually didn't get any funding for almost like 2 years, 2.5 years, and we started getting projects. We started getting noticed sometime. I think it was 1999, and that is when we started bringing out our annual Ux desk diary, which used to be a thematic, which still is a thematic diary. So each year we would bring out this diary, and I think that also became a source of recognition for of Ux in the donor groups, in civil society groups, and also in the media. I used to go to the media with the press clippings and discuss with them the way to report a thing, an event, and how not to report rape, how not to report violence against women in a very sensational kind of manner. So that is how we began. So the funding has never been big. In fact, a lot of my team people, my staff keeps asking me, and they keep telling me that that organization has so much of funding, and they have like their own office, and they have a big 2 3 vehicles, 4x4s, whereas ours is a very small little office without any such luxuries of having your own vehicles or anything. But like I always tell them, that that's how I had planned us to be, not to be a very huge organization. We are very focused. We are a small organization, but we have done great amount of work, and funding has sometimes been good. Right now we don't have much funding, and we are struggling to get it, to get projects. Obviously, it's a tough competition. In the beginning, there was only one organization monitoring the media or doing the content analysis on gender issues. Now there are quite a few. So the competition is tough, and we are struggling. But we are very focused on two things. One is our commitment to how women are being portrayed in the media, and also how women are being treated within the industry. For example, is there a gender parity there? Are the salaries of men and women the same? Or what kind of facilities do women get as part of positive discrimination? For example, is there a daycare there, or is there transport service that's available for women? So all those things, so we're very clear about what kind of work we're doing and what kind of work we should not be doing. And we are also quite choosy about it, and we only take up projects when we feel that, yeah, this is where our heart and mind and soul is. So the funding has never been very great, and we just manage. We have not been able to sort of, have massive kind of savings. We sometimes just break even. So paying the utilities, the salaries, the rent, and everything. I have been, and I continue to be a salaried director. Like, I've never taken a salary from Uks for all these 23 years, and I feel that is what a director should be doing. If you are committed, then money is not your your aim or your goal. It's not, you don't establish an organization to earn money or to make money. So for me, Ux has never been a source for money making, and we continue. Yeah, sometimes I feel like, maybe it's not going anywhere funding wise, so should I just close shop? But then I think, no, we must continue. So let's see. Yeah, I hope things will be, things will improve with time. Yeah.
Mhm. Well, Mr. Sneem, let's move on to another topic of discussion. For any organization to maintain relevance well into the future, it needs to involve the youth in one way or the other. Looking at Pakistan in particular, we know that 64% of the population is younger than the age of 30, giving us huge potential to involve them, maybe to generate new ideas or simply to modernize their views about the role of women. How is UX involving the youth of this country to change the traditional or almost archaic mindset about the role of women in the Pakistani society?
We have a lot of time focused on the youth of Pakistan. We have done projects after projects on youth, especially the youth and how to make them interact with the media. So we did a national project of connecting youth with the media and how they should come up with counter narratives or a counter production. So it was the youth from all over Pakistan, and what we actually had done is we had sort of selected young people from colleges and universities that belong to different strata of the society. So they were, the first meeting that we had a clear divide. There was one group that could only speak in English, and there was another that could only speak in Urdu, and there were some who could, speak both the languages. And you could see that, people coming from schools that or universities that were English medium, obviously, were very fluent in the English. So it was very interesting for us to be able to carry on with the training, in being bilingual. So the entire training was bilingual, and we then had formed groups of students, and we mixed the medium of English and Urdu. And by the end of the project, that is in 1 year, the last training session that we had, it was a pleasant surprise that we could see everybody gelled together and mixing around very comfortably. So the divide, the language divide, actually had sort of, it obviously wouldn't go away, but it was sort of, like a side issue. And that whole project was on, how do you look at the media, and how do you uh, how would you sort of bring in the change in the content. We also did a project with young girls in Liari in Karachi, and we trained these young girls who had never ever looked at, like even seen a computer, a PC, and they were in a home school in Liari that was established by a person who wanted to educate the girls and women. So they were students from age 16 to age 70, women who wanted to study and who wanted to be able to pass grade 10, for example. So these were these girls that we had taken, and we selected the younger lot out of that school, and we started to train them on how do you produce radio programs. So the entire training was around that, and they were given voice recorders and everything, and they were supposed to go back and bring content, record content on the issues that they had taken. So it was a variety of issue from harassment, on the mobility thing, the drug issue, why men don't work in their areas, why is the education level so low. So these girls who had come in the the first time I had seen them, they couldn't even speak up. And when we had the final press conference, in which they were supposed to present their work, the programs that they had put together, yes, they could face the press, the media very boldly. They could answer the questions. They could, come up with their explanations why they produce a certain program. So that's how we have involved the youth. And again, now with our social media engagements, the kind of dialogue for change we have, a lot of youth is involved. So yes, youth is a part of our activities, and we like to focus on youth and how to change their perception and how to make them understand what's wrong with the media and how they could, play a positive role in changing the content.
hmm they say the harder you work for something, the greater you'll feel when you achieve it. What are some key achievements where Ux has been able to make a positive difference in the lives of women living in Pakistan?
Well, when you say that, what changes has Ux been able to make in the lives of Pakistani women, I would say that a lot of it, a lot of content that media has been producing has undergone change. I wouldn't say that I've been or Ux has been able to change it completely or make drastic kind of transformation. That wouldn't be true. But yes, small little changes. Like for example, in the beginning when we started to monitor the media, the print media, a lot of derogatory words were used for women. Titliyan, which is butterflies, and there was a whole lot of news that was centered around the Kumarima, which is a virgin mother, and the the bundle of sin would be the child born to her. So all that sort of changed with our trainings, because I would always ask my trainees, the media people, that when you write this story about this woman who has delivered, an illegitimate, quote unquote, child, so you've never mentioned the father, the man. So how did she produce the child? We just had one Virgin Mary. We couldn't have had so many every day. So that was a thought that we left them with, and that why do you put the whole burden thing on women? Why is the blame game just with women? So after 10 years, when we did a whole exercise of looking back and seeing the changes in the content, we found out that the mention of that virgin woman or the virgin woman, a mother, and the illegitimate child or the bundle of sin and being thrown in a garbage had actually changed in many newspapers. And the terminologies now being used was that the body of a newborn baby was found. So that is one, I think, a change that we brought in. And I think I have personally been involved with a training of a lot of people at top positions, and trying to make them understand that women issues are not just uh, restricted to one day, like you know March 8th or any such day. but how do you every day there should be an editorial on women, and every day there should be some positive or whatever, like even news about violence against women. So not just as a crime story, but also as a human rights story. Also, a lot of times I have pointed out you know a news when it is being aired, because I'm monitoring the news a lot of times. And for example, during elections, uh, 2013, when we viewed, we watched the election coverage, not the election coverage, but the day that women were being, the assembly was being sworn in, and there were all these M&As coming in, and the packages were all around, what dresses were women wearing, what kind of designer bags were they holding, how made up they were. There wasn't anything about men who were equally decked up, in their white shalwar kurta or their new suit or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a meeting, a one-day seminar on it, where we had the politicians, we had the media, we had the civil society, and we debated, why should women be seen in that kind of a narrow frame. And we hope that, the next elections, the package would be different, but come elections 2018, and the same National Assembly, the same M&As going in, and the same kind of media coverage, again focusing on what women were wearing and all that. So we again, I took it up personally with a lot of friends who are bureau chiefs and director news, and somehow they always sort of justified that these are like, light packages, and which I don't believe in, and I very strongly am against that. There is nothing light about commodifying women, so or objectifying women for that matter. So hopefully, election 2023, we may have some kind of a different coverage for women, uh, and we will continue to struggle for how women should be portrayed, and a lot of I think change that we've been able to bring in is through our radio productions, because they're always with the kind of message, whether they're on violence against women, whether they're on why women should be fetching water, because we did an entire series on why is it that it's only women who go and fetch water, especially in villages. Uh, it's a very romanticized kind of concept, but in actuality, women face a lot of hardship. They've had miscarriages, they have had harassment issues, rape, assault, everything. So we keep bringing this up in the hope that things may improve one day.
Mhm, certainly. You've mentioned a whole load of problems faced by women in Pakistan today, and how UX is trying its level best to curtail or address these certain issues through the use of media. Lastly, what are some of your future aspirations for UX?
Well, the future plans, Sman. Well, I think we all have dreams for future, and we all obviously think big for the future, and that's what I have in mind for UX. I would like UX to be recognized. I mean, it is recognized internationally and nationally, but I would like it to be recognized as the sole media monitoring and content analysis organization that is there in Pakistan today, because I think we are the only ones who have the data from 1998 till today on women issues, taken out of almost like 18, not sorry, about 14 newspapers, mainstream newspapers, um, in Urdu and English, coming out of Pakistan, and it continues even till today. So we have a huge database, and uh, a lot of students come to us, and they benefit from this data. So I would like this to be a data bank, and people to be able to utilize the kind of data we have, because we have almost like 54 or 55 categories, which has like women and agriculture, in industry, in marketplace, in as entrepreneurs, in politics. So all these things are there. Human rights, women's rights, child rights. So everything is there. So that is one aspiration for the future, to be able to come up as a you know a data bank on women issues. The second is to be able to start a web series on women. First, I was thinking of having a channel, but obviously it's too expensive. Can't even dream of having a channel, TV or radio. So the web series or web content is the next option, but we do need sponsors for that as well. So I'm working on that. Hopefully, we will be able to get some kind of funding in the near future. And the third would be to be able to train a lot of media people, the younger lot, so that they come up with strong ethical guidelines. They know what is the right way of reporting and what's the wrong way of reporting, and that's something that they could follow in future, in coming days. And yeah, a lot of things which we keep thinking about. And so we dream big, and sometimes we think, yeah, dreaming is fine, but you have to be very practical also. So practically looking at things, maybe some of it may come true and some may not, but yeah, fingers crossed, we are hopeful.
Well, thank you so much, Ms. Tasneem, for giving us a clearer picture on all these various issues faced by women in Pakistan. Of course, in spite of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, you've been able to share your valuable time with us online for this special podcast. Of course, it's truly remarkable how Uks is constantly trying to make a difference to the many millions of women living in this country. And of course, in a developing nation like ours, where the lack of education and traditional deep rooted patriarchal values continue to overshadow our daily lives, the role of Uks becomes even more important. I sincerely wish you all the best in your future efforts to sweep Pakistan clear of gender bias. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Usman, for having me over for this podcast and for all the discussion. I loved being here and I hope you enjoyed it.
I sure did. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning into this podcast by Uks Research. Please follow our Instagram and Facebook pages, and don't forget to view our online website to stay up to date with our day to day activities. And I'd like to end with a quote by Muhammad Ali Jinnah: "No nation can rise to the height of glory unless your women are side by side with you." Bye bye, and take care.